Hello and welcome to Tuesday training. So I'm a minute late. I had a bit of a technical issue there. Not sure why. Anyway, today we are talking about learning curves. Now, we talked a little bit about that yesterday and how horses go through these learning curves. So sometimes you come out and you think, oh, I'm doing so well. This horse is really getting this and understanding the lesson and this is fabulous. And then you come out the next day and the horse, it's like it's never heard of the lesson before. And you think, oh, I'm a terrible trainer, or it's a stupid horse or something like that. But what's probably happened is your horse is going through some learning curves and you've put it away at not a great time when the horse didn't really have a good grasp on the lesson. One of the main things that make the horse, go through these learning curves, and one of the ways you can reduce that is to get your horse into the engagement zone. So to really get the emotional level of the horse right before you start your lesson. And it's terribly important. And I think it's one of the reasons that training isn't successful a lot of the time that it doesn't work well and the horse actually doesn't learn the lesson is because the emotional level has been wrong. Now, it might be that your horse is too emotional, so your horse might be afraid, or it might be that your horse is not emotional enough. So, it's one of those two extremes perhaps. So it's not a matter of saying, oh, you've got to calm the horse down all the time, because sometimes horses, especially those that have been really desensitized to pressure, they switch off. Those horses that we call bomb-proof or dull, they've switched off and they're probably in sort of learned helplessness, really, because what they've found in the past is that no matter what they do, nothing really changes what's going on for them. So, it doesn't get any better if they respond to the pressure or not. They have the same outcome all the time, and pressure is often unrelenting and often meaningless as well. So knowing your horse's emotional level, so being able to assess your horse's emotional level is very important. So know those signs that mean your horse is anxious or stressed, and know those signs when your horse is actually not with you or asleep and not engaging with you. So then from there, we go to learning to raise and lower the emotional level. And that's another really important thing, because especially for those of you that have got anxious horses, and a lot of horses, especially those with bad training histories, are very anxious. And so you start working with them, especially when you start to teach them new things, they get even more anxious, because in the past, learning new things has been associated with unpredictability and often quite harsh training. So they are reluctant to learn new things, and they do get very anxious. So it's very tempting to think with those anxious horses that you just need to lower their emotional level. We'll just calm him down, just give him a pat and be nice and give him a treat, or whatever it might be, your way of controlling or lowering the emotional level. And the problem is with that is that it's actually impossible to do that. You can't just lower the emotional level. You actually have to raise it even a little bit, and then offer the horse the opportunity to relax from there. You don't have to raise it a lot, but you have to raise it just a little bit higher than the horse has decided it should be. So if you have a horse that's, let's say every horse has an emotional level that could be rated out of 100. So every horse, you could rate its emotional level out of 100. If it's just a normal horse and it's grazing in the paddock, its emotional level would be at 50, so an average. And if you bought that average horse, it wasn't highly strung or anything else, if you bought that in and started tacking it up and things, it might sort of raise up to a 55 as you were doing something, tacking it up and things like that. And then when you took it out to start learning your lesson and you start teaching your lesson, perhaps a 60 would be a good emotional level. I find that raising the emotional level about 10% above resting is about what you need. So let's take your really emotional horse in, and he might still be a 50 in the paddock, but when you bring him in to tack him up, he might be a 60. And then when you take him out to start your lesson, he might be a 70. Now, in that case, it's tempting then to just try and bring him down to a 65 from a 70. The problem is he's not going to want to do that. That won't make any sense to him. So what you have to do is just push it up just a tiny little bit. So just put him under some pressure, ask for something, and then say, right, now relax. So you might push him up to 72 and then say, now relax, and he'll relax at 68. And then you can push him up to 69, he'll relax to 67. And you work that, so pushing him up, bringing him down, pushing him up, bringing him down. Not a lot, just a little bit. So because the thing is, the pressure is your motivator. So whatever you're wanting to do has to be more motivating than what your horse has decided is the reason that his emotional level is going so high. And so I think that's a really important thing, because I think a lot of these anxious horses spend a lot longer being anxious than they should do or they have to do, because we're a little bit worried all the time about how to deal with that anxiety, and we try all the time to calm the horse down. And the problem is we can't just do that. It's not a one-way thing. What goes up must come down, but it's got to go up first. So not a lot, but just a little bit. And I think that's really important. And once you've learned that, if you work your way through these lessons here, you'll really have a good grasp on how your horse's emotional level is and how it is throughout the lesson as you teach the lesson. And it'll give you a really good idea of those sort of basic principles of training that carry through from the very start to the finish. And that's terribly important. So if you start there and then go back to courses, if we look then at the next thing, which is the first thing I always teach, which is the give to the bit course. Now, this is all about relaxation. So we've already got the horse's emotional level under control. Like, we understand that now. We know we're dealing perhaps with a very emotional horse, or we know we're perhaps dealing with a very desensitized and dull horse that we have to resensitize. And in both cases, the emotional level of the horse during the lesson is of paramount importance. So now we can go into this work and really make the most of having that horse in the engagement zone. So these simple give to bit pressure lessons, the horse really can take on board and absorb. And that's great, because these are the cornerstone of all the other lessons that you're going to be teaching the horse. So terribly important to get these right. So basically that's all we have for you today, and I will be back tomorrow with Hump Day, and I look forward to seeing you then. Bye now.